Well, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Matthew Gamble. I am not a medical doctor. I do have a doctorate degree in transformational leadership, and I'm extremely pleased and happy to be with you today, introducing you to Jason. Many of you probably already know him. He's a gentleman that I am getting to know and excited about learning more and more about psychedelic scene and also exploring both the history, the present, and what's to come, what could be expected in the future. So, Jason, thank you for your time today. It's really a pleasure, honor to be getting to know you. How is life treating you, and where are you located on the planet?
Right. Well, I'm currently in Tucson, Arizona, but I did uh, conceive of and begin a psychedelic scene in Phoenix during COVID. I was up there spending time with, spending an extended period of time with my father and stepmother who had Alzheimer's and has since passed.
Hmm.
Um, and just there wasn't a whole lot of stuff that you could do during that time, and so I did what I could, which was start an online publication from my dad's home.
So, I'm around a lot of people, and it's not everybody that would be living during COVID, taking care of the elderly, and then thinking about launching an online psychedelic scene magazine. So what was what's the backdrop there? What was the impetus, inspiration for you to step into this?
There is another publication that focuses on psychedelic music, and um, I've always had a penchant for writing and an interest in writing, and I decided to contact the owner of the publication and see if he'd be interested in having me do some writing, maybe some interviews. And he was very amenable to the idea. And so I did. I published 7 things with him during 2020. And then I asked him if he wanted to collaborate and grow his publication uh, to be something, bigger and more multifaceted. And he declined. So I just thought, well, I'll start my own. And
Incredible.
yeah, and so that's what I did. And the purpose was I wanted it to be more than just music. I kind of wanted it to be, um, your one stop shopping for all things psychedelic, um, and include not just music, but the culture aspects, art. Um, I've published a number of psychonaut entries, and I've very happily published a number of psychedelic healing journeys. And I think that is uh, perhaps the most important thing that I've done is to illustrate to people that it's possible to heal from your traumas uh, using psychedelics, and that everything that we learned about psychedelics growing up turned out to be wrong. They don't fry your
Mm,
brain; they grow your brain. They foster
right.
neuroplasticity and allow you to develop neural pathways that help you learn new ways of coping. And that's just something that we were misinformed about
Right.
when we were younger, and needs to be cleared up now. So I'm happy to be part of the movement, if you will, of people clearing up that myth.
Right. Well, it's incredible because in doing a little bit of digging around, so Psychedelic Scene has over 20,000 followers on Facebook alone. And I don't think I had put two and two together that this launched in 2020. So within
2021.
less 2021, so in less than, four-ish years ish, that's quite a significant amount of growth. And I'm curious, what do you accredit that growth towards or to?
Well, I think that the growth on Facebook anyway is due to my ability to engage the audience. And I post something almost every day, like I would say 363 days a year. Uh, I do a lot of, no, actually, I post more than that because some days I'll post three or four things. And so there's just a lot of engagement, and I've found what people get excited about, at least the people who are looking at the Facebook page. It
Mm-hmm.
may be a different audience from the people that are reading the publication. I mean, I'm sure there's a great deal of overlap, but um, the, uh, the people on the Facebook page do seem to belong to a certain demographic.
Right.
And I think the demographic is wider for the people who actually read the articles on the publication on the website.
Right. So and boy, a myriad of things are popping up for me to ask, but I am curious then. So but I make up anyway that you've had psychedelic experience in your life, and I am back to that impetus of launching this. Um, would you be willing to share a little bit about your journey with psychedelics or plant medicines and entheogens, and yeah, share with us your own experience?
Sure. I've always been a curious cat, a seeker, and wanting to try new experiences. And uh, by the time I was a junior, senior in high school, I was really fascinated by the idea of psychedelics, and I didn't try them until my freshman year of college. And I was instantly not hooked, but fascinated even more by the actual experience, and continued to do them throughout college, and experienced incredible things and personal growth. The idea of using them to heal wasn't anything that I ever came across at that point. I don't think it was. I mean, maybe indigenous tribes used it that way. I'm sure they did. They did. But in our culture, I don't think it was really a thing at that point to use psychedelics to heal. That came much later. I think Rick Doblin obviously deserves a whole lot of credit for his contributions to the field of psychedelic healing. And that was the 80s when he founded MAPS. Um, but I just enjoyed the experience and valued the experience. I had many profound experiences. And so, I that was really my only interest
Mm,
for the first few decades that I took those substances.
hmm.
It wasn't really until about 2020 when I started hearing about the psychedelic renaissance and the use of psychedelics to heal from trauma and so forth.
Hmm.
And I did have a severe traumatic event happen to me at the end of 2019. So it really grabbed my interest and set me on a path to heal from psychedelics. And
Hmm.
we're going to talk a little bit more about this, I think, about my personal healing journey. Um, but oh, now I lost my train of thought. Well,
You said you were talking about a traumatic event in 2019, I believe,
at the tail end of 2019,
and
yes.
the psychedelic renaissance, and then yeah.
Right.
I don't know
So
if
it
that
was like,
triggers.
in 2020 that I started thinking along the lines of using psychedelics to heal from my own trauma.
And had it been since your college days, like in your 20s, had you been hiatus from working with entheogens?
Uh, I never completely lost interest, but I kind of put them on the back burner. You know, I'm a big music person, and in 2015, I started a radio station with the primary goal was to play music that doesn't get played on corporate radio. But I had a secondary mission, which was to raise awareness of mental health and try to reduce the stigma of seeking help for mental health issues. And hopefully I accomplished that. The radio station is still on the air and it still has mental health programming. So I'm hoping from all those years of bringing it to light that it has uh, had that effect on the community where people have learned that it's okay to have mental health problems and it's okay to get help for them. There's nothing, in the past, it's always been something that's been a source of shame for people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, this, people don't want to be thought of as crazy, so they don't want to own up to having mental health issues. That's
Right.
changed a lot in just the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, there have been a bunch of celebrities that have said, I need to take some time off because I'm having some mental health issues,
Right.
and that kind of thing. So the culture is changing, and people are now uh, more comfortable talking about their own issues, or at least admitting that they need help and then seeking help for them.
Well, yeah, a couple of things are hitting me. One is it is interesting that back in the 60s and 70s, as psychedelics were already being studied in clinical settings, but then the government really oppressing, really attacking these studies, the research being done, and then we're seeing the psychedelic renaissance, as you mentioned already. And then coupled with that is this stigma around mental health that you're presencing about, people in society. There's been a lot of shame around mental health, but there's also this turning of the tide where we're not only seeing more people, like you were mentioning, celebrities coming out. I know you and I have both talked about um, our own experiences with our traumas or our own healing path. And so the stigma around mental health it seems like there's more acceptance, simultaneously watching the efficacy of these medicines. Like you said, they don't destroy your brain. They're shown to introduce the plasticity. So on an important note, from my perspective, I really commend you, Jason. I'm assuming your background with education in your college days was with writing.
No, actually, it wasn't. I've just always
Oh,
had a talent for writing, but my education is in psychology. I
well,
have a
beautiful. Okay,
master's in counseling, actually.
incredible. So with that background, then I knew you had a strong suit with writing. So the fact that you've took it upon yourself to join that other online publication and contribute there, but then ultimately to start Psychedelic Scene, and within a very short period of time, as a guy that's been well aware of social media for a long time, to grow to 20,000 on Facebook is not something to shake a stick at. I mean, it's a pretty significant amount of humans and growing. Plus, you have content out on YouTube, on Instagram, and looking to continue to grow more. So I'm just wanting to really celebrate the fact that however your heart was led to put yourself out there, I think it's a significant undertaking, especially posting on the daily. So big kudos to you and your journey, and the way that great spirit, however we want to talk about the the universe or God or spirit, I just find it really commendable, the work that you've been doing, and I'm so grateful our paths have crossed. I am curious, over the last several years, what you've seen and learned with Psychedelic Scene, and if you can give us kind of an update as to where things are presently.
Sure. Well, as you know, Psychedelic Scene it has a lot of entertainment content in addition to informational content.
Mhm.
I just, I enjoy music and having fun too much to make it too serious. So there is a lot of music content. And, I personally have just been learning more and more and more about psychedelic music. I created a playlist on Spotify for obscure 60s and 70s psychedelia, and that just keeps growing organically. It's like at 8,300 saves now. It's just taken off, taken a life of its own. Um, but in addition to the music, um, I've published, as I mentioned, a number of healing journeys and spoken to people who've uh, recovered from their traumas as a
Hmm.
result of psychedelic healing.
Hmm.
And so I'm very encouraged by that. It's, I think that they wouldn't have gotten there just through regular talk therapy. And I
Right.
think, these people would say the same thing if they didn't. I think they did, but um, there's just something about the psychedelic experience that uh, not just accelerates the recovery, but uh, provides the insights necessary to recover. And well, it depends on the substance, but it could provide uh, the the safe feeling necessary to go deep into a traumatic experience.
Hmm. Yeah. Are you open to diving in? Because we have talked off record here. We've talked about our own journeys with this, because you and I do share that interest, as many people do in the psychedelic space, the interest of the healing of the mental health, and and on a personal level, obviously that's near and dear to you and I both. So um I'm curious, are you open to sharing a little more of your own journey? Because I'm witnessing both, and I would totally agree with you on a personal level. I witness in you both the experience, having these really profound experiences that have kept you intrigued, and then also while also recognizing there's this progressive journey, or this experience. And I'm are you open to sharing a little more on your own path? I know you've got articles published already that people can take a look at, and maybe there's something you can reference there that we can draw people's attention to. But yeah, are you open to sharing a little bit more?
Man, yeah. Uh, so I'll start out by saying that I have not healed from my trauma yet. And I think that's important to say, because there may be other people that are following the same path and trying to heal using psychedelics that haven't gotten there yet. And I kind of feel like I'm at times I've felt cursed, like, why me? Why am I not getting the benefits that other people have gotten from from the psychedelics? So the first thing I did, like back in I think 2020, I did ketamine therapy, where I went into a center and had an IV hooked up, and just sat in a room for an hour or so, maybe a little longer, feeling the effects of the ketamine. And I really enjoyed the experience. It was so weird. It's such a weird journey. But it didn't really do anything in terms of alleviating my depression or trauma. I found out later that that in order for the neuroplasticity to work, that you can't be on a benzodiazepine, and I was, and this place knew it, but if they don't get the money if I don't do it. So they accepted me and didn't say that that was an issue. And so I feel like I wasted a lot of money doing that. But again, it wasn't a total waste because I valued the experience and enjoyed the experience. That chain, by the way, has gone out of business. Perhaps, for, I don't know why, but, maybe I don't know. But since then, I've done ketamine at home. You can get it sent to you at home. And I've done strong, like 600 milligram journeys at home. It's pretty wild that they, just give you that.
Mail it to your doorstep.
Because you're pretty much incapacitated at that level. You are incapacitated. And again, I enjoyed the experience immensely, but it didn't do much, if anything, to heal the trauma and depression. So apart from that, I also have tried 5-MeO DMT and ayahuasca. Ayahuasca was next, actually, so I'll talk about that. There is a place not too far from where I live that has ayahuasca ceremonies. So when I first heard about it, I thought I was going to have to travel to Costa Rica or something. But it turns out that an organization, if it's founded as a church or a religious entity, they can serve yahe. And so I did that, and I've had four nights of that. And 2 of those nights, I felt nothing at all. One night, I did feel something and had like a brief moment of visuals, but really nothing profound. And then the last time that I did it was just a total nightmare. It was like, it felt like a never-ending nightmare, where I was just in deep, deep psychological pain. And I felt at the time that I wasn't feeling the effects. I was, in the sense that it intensified my personal pain, but not in the sense that I had any visuals. And that particular night, I had 6 cups of the brew, and each time I went to the altar and I told the facilitator, the lead facilitator, that I was feeling pain, and he he did his routine, like he blew smoke on me and like put his forehead down on my knee and just stuff like that. Oh, he gave me a polished rock and said I could like tell my feelings to it and it'll keep them in there. Just really, even at the time, I just thought this is really hokey, and it didn't do anything. I just laid there all night awake, just kind of moaning and having a horrible time. And that was it. I decided not to do ayahuasca again.
Mm-hmm. With just to interject a couple things, because with the ketamine, and then you were on a contraindicated diazepine, did you say? I believe I'm saying
Yeah.
that.
Well, after the ketamine center experience, I got off the benzos.
Uh-huh.
I weaned myself off, which was difficult because they're highly addictive. They're like, I I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but they're like as addictive as heroin. So it's not easy to get off those. It took me 2.5 months or something.
Sure. I just, I mean, I think part of what I'm wanting to presence, because I too, whether it be, I've not been to a ketamine clinic, but I have not had the results having worked with ketamine myself. I have been a subscriber of one of these in-home, um, where they send it to your doorstep legally. I did want to make the disclaimer too, that because this is all educational on YouTube and wherever you're watching this, that the milligrams I'm very curious about, because there's various ways of receiving ketamine. And if somebody were to say insufflate ketamine through the nose, at 600 milligrams, that would be an obscene amount of medicine. So I'm really curious. I know the company I was working with, which was different from yours, their highest dose is like 120.
I've done that. I've gotten a nasal spray
Yeah.
on the black market and learned how much it would be to equal the dose that I was used to, which 600 milligrams, and it's about 20 nasal ingestions. So it's a lot, but
Well,
it can be done.
yeah. Anyway, just trying to presence that dosing is extremely important. But the bigger point at hand here is the efficacy of these medicines, especially when we're looking at, say, Johns Hopkins University, and they're treating people with a single dose of psilocybin with these unprecedented results in mental health. Like one dose is getting people off of addiction or completely switching their depression or end of life trauma or anxiety. So there's been some really unprecedented findings. And then there's those of us, and I'll be curious to know what the viewers say in the comments about this, or it'll be interesting to see who ends up seeing this, because I make up that there are those of us that, I don't know if it's because the trauma is deeper or if it's just maybe our chemical makeup. It may be set and setting. But it seems to me that there's those of us that have a longer road to hoe, so to speak, in the medicine space. I also think you bring up a good point with what you commented about your ayahuasca experience. And that is, you decided after these, I think you mentioned 6 ceremonies total, a couple of them were completely ineffective, or you didn't feel the medicine.
Mhm.
Sounds like you took copious amounts of brew that night. And then there is a relativity, right, within ayahuasca, because we really don't know exactly how much MAOI or how much DMT you're getting with every drink, or every cup. But that said, you got to a place, if I'm hearing correctly, where you just said, I use another phrase, and that is, this isn't my medicine. I've tried it, but you're open to other things, but you've given this a valiant effort, and it just hasn't landed as your medicine. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I wouldn't put myself through that nightmare again.
Right.
It was really difficult, and I didn't have any kind of catharsis actually until the next day. And it was just a chance occurrence. My dad and sister called, and I was on the phone with them, and something that one of them, during our discussion, it triggered me, and I started crying, and I had that release that I was looking for, and felt
Mm.
better after that. But that again wasn't anything to do with the ayahuasca ceremony, or the ayahuasca. It was just, go ahead.
Well, but I hear you. I do hear you. The curiosity that kicks in for me, because I feel you deeply. I've sat in many ayahuasca ceremony, and it's been some of the more grueling, painful, somatically, mentally challenging experiences of my life. I've also had some really glorious, powerful, but at least when I heard you describe your sister, and was it your sister and dad, you said, called the next day, and that you had this cathartic release? Could it be that you were in a more vulnerable state, so that when that, for instance, or another way of saying it is we often talk about in the circles I'm in, that once you sign up for ceremony, the ceremony begins. That's your preparation. And then after ceremony, the medicine's working on you for days to come. It's still in you. So are you open to the notion of that possibility, that maybe that was part of the medicine experience, was having this grueling journey and then having that call?
Yes. Yeah, I
Just a
think
thought.
you're right. Um, yeah, I'm totally open to that, and I do believe that you're correct. I was still, I think the medicine was still working on me in its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Go ahead.
well, it's challenging because, again, some people will go and sit and have this one-off ayahuasca experience, and their whole entire reality shifts. So, and that's one thing I also would commend with you, Jason, as I've gotten to know you, is that you, similar to myself, I'm still on my healing path with traumas in my life. And to be honest with you, I feel like as I've gone down this path more and more, um, it seems to me that that's what's happening, is that there's more layers that are coming off, that it's been a bit daunting, in the sense that I thought I had pretty good self-awareness, but it's almost like as we go down these medicine paths, um, that more ego either falls off, or scales fall away from our eyes, to strip us down into more levels of awareness. And um, I say that while also holding deep respect, because I'm around a number of people that are really devout psychonauts that have come to a similar conclusion of saying, this is not my medicine. Whatever, the could have been psilocybin, it could have been
Mhm.
ayahuasca. And I think there's a lot of validity to that, just that notion of having your own awareness and discernment, because these compounds are not for the faint of heart, as you and I both know. And at the same time, they hold tremendous potential. And and then back to that word that we're on this psychedelic renaissance, in many respects, we're forging new frontiers, even though a lot of these compounds have been used for millennia. In the Western world, thank God to the Rick Doblins of the world, or the McKennas, and et cetera, that have done some, the Timothy Learys, the Ram Dasses, that have done some real deep pioneering work in this space. But it feels to me like it's very much an individual journey. I know some people that have worked with ketamine, for instance, that have had incredible results to depression and to their experience with depression. And I, as a man that struggled with depression off and on through my life, I hear their story and journey with some level of jealousy. I think we're going to need like a part two here, and that we could talk for quite some time. Looking at the time, and if we're landing the plane here, say in the next 5 to 10 minutes, I am curious, and I know I've just said a mouthful. Either if it feels good to you to respond to any of that, I'm also curious to hear you talk a little bit, because we've talked about the past and a little bit of the present with Psychedelic Scene, and what you see as the future to come, or where you see the ship heading.
Right. Well, I did want to talk about a little bit about my 5-MeO DMT experience.
Oh, yes, please. Absolutely.
Because that is the other piece of the psychedelic healing journey that I've attempted. So just last summer, I had my first experience with 5-MeO, and a friend of mine who he's a bit older and he's got a lot of experience with it. He brought some over and, helped me ingest it. And it was instant relief from all the depression and anxiety that I had been feeling just melted away. And I felt pure bliss. Everything started connecting in my mind, and I started seeing solutions to problems that I didn't know had solutions. And one of the things I remember, I felt like the presence of some kind of divine entity. And I also felt grateful, and I felt the profound importance of gratitude. And so once I came out of it, I just started writing all these things down. And I had another similar experience the second time I took it. Then I had some just kind of so-so experiences, even with a clinician.
With 5-MeO?
With 5-MeO, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had like maybe a half dozen more experiences. And then I found out about these trained psychotherapists that use 5-MeO to treat people on the weekends. And so I did that with them, and I had super high hopes because I had experienced the power of 5-MeO. And these guys are like top rated psychotherapists. And so did that with them. The first day, nothing happened. I felt nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And in preparing for this, I got off everything else, no antidepressants or benzos or anything like that. So my vessel was clean. And the second day, they suggested using a suppository, which I wasn't thrilled about, but I did it anyway. And that did something. I felt it, and it was like spread out more than just taking a puff of it. It seemed to last for over an hour. But during that time, I was just kind of laying there wailing and experiencing a lot of early childhood stuff, a lot of wailing and crying, and no real catharsis then either. No catharsis. And I was disappointed that the therapist didn't utilize that time to like do psychotherapy on me. They just kind of sat there and observed like it's a normal ceremony. They were just, people observing the ceremony rather than trained psychotherapists that work with this medicine. So I just expected more out of them, and it didn't happen. And I had to start thinking about whether or not I was going to abandon my psychedelic journey. I'm not. I'm still hopeful. I still believe in it, and that is something that I'm already planning my next step in that area.
Yeah, were you complete there?
I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. At least what comes up for me there, I've recently been around somebody that's worked with 5-MeO hundreds of times, and he's a decade younger than I am. So he's 40, I'm 50. And then, back to this piece about, really for the generic or umbrella phrase of your set and setting of who is there running the ship, who is there facilitating. And I guess I think it takes a lot of bravery and courage to show up into these spaces, especially with all these compounds, with ayahuasca, with psilocybin. I was told early on that 5-MeO is considered the Mount Everest of psychedelics, and having worked with that compound, a number of times myself, there's been quite an array of experiences, and so I think it highlights what you're bringing up, whether it be the shaman that was, forehead on your leg and here's a stone and talk into it, and these things didn't particularly land for you, or the ketamine clinic that knew of your contraindicated drug but was going to go ahead and serve it to you anyway, and then they're closed down. And then working with 5-MeO, and they didn't, for Jason's experience, it just didn't land or wasn't as impactful as it could have been, is what I take away, while also celebrating your commitment to staying on the journey. I think I believe that there's, back to that statement about the Renaissance that we're in, where there's a lot of people that I know here in the Bay Area that I meet at these events or whatnot that have these certifications to administer psychedelics, but they've hardly touched them, if worked with them at all themselves. And it's quite appalling. It's part of the reason why, on a personal level, I've recently stepped out of a church, a psychedelic medicine church community, where I've been heavily involved in serving alongside the founder for the last 4 years. And I'm stepping in. We're still allies, and I believe in her and what she's doing. But there was enough nuanced patterns or things that I was witnessing that didn't fully land well for me, and felt compelled to do something, very different. I've never personally, I think it's wonderful that you've had the experience of being in the clinics, because I personally have never been in that in that particular setting. All or most of my work has been in a ceremonial setting. So again, but thank you for coming back to the 5-MeO, because it does sound to me like there were multiple experiences within that, especially the first one you described. That sounds incredibly palpable, somatic, experiential, of watching the depression and the anxiety leave, the trauma leave, your brain being able to see things from a new way, and then really releasing into that bliss state. I make up is worth the price of admission, and is really a divine birthright.
I really thought that my problems were over after that first experience.
Right.
I thought, that's it. This is it. This is all I
Yeah.
need. I'm healed.
Yeah. So just to be mindful of the time, because again, I think we ought to, I mean, it'd be fun to do this again, and to keep this discussion going. Maybe we can hop on and compare notes along the way, and track our own journey. For me, this has been really, really powerful to hear you more, get to know you more, backstory a little bit more in depth. And then I'm also really excited and intrigued to see what kind of comments are going to come through, because I know this for a fact that you and I are not the only ones that we haven't had that one and done experience. And as much as I wish that 5-MeO that one time was, did it all and was the magic cure, the bulk of what I've seen and experienced is that it's the exception and not the rule. And then the other thing I was reminded of when you talked about the last person, if it was the last time that the person facilitating your 5-MeO, that they didn't meet the expectation. And I think that that's another big piece that is often lacking, is that there's whether it be in a ceremonial setting. I don't have personal experience with the clinical, but know a lot of people that have gone that route in with a myriad of different entheogens. But if you've heard that phrase before, that happiness is reality minus expectations, because when we step into the expectations, can, especially in the psychedelic space, can really, really take its toll, especially when we step into these very foreign experiences in our life. But again, celebrating the positive outcomes, celebrating both yours and my commitment to staying on the path, and using discernment, and treading, sounds like, cautiously or reverently, respectfully, in a good way moving forward. With that said, are you open to sharing any thoughts around the future of Psychedelic Scene? And then I want to make sure we highlight, the website and the various channels and opportunities and what may be to come.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, there's a lot I want to do with Psychedelic Scene. And for the past nearly 2 years, I've been doing, and I hired a company to do an investor campaign for me. So they built a pitch deck, and they've been contacting investors on my behalf. And so far that hasn't panned out. I think I have a good pitch deck, but I haven't found an investor yet. So still looking for that. With the financial backing behind it, there's just so much I could do. Grow the publication, grow the readership, by advertising, hire a social media manager, and pay writers something. So far I haven't been able to pay writers because there's just not enough money coming in. But yeah, there's just, it's almost too much to really say what I want to do. But grow it. One of the things I would like to do is to have a psychedelic music radio station on the website so that people could just, click the listen now button from the website and hear psychedelic music. And, a lot of it might be psychedelic rock, but I would want to have a lot of the ambient stuff that people actually use for the psychedelic journeys.
Awesome. I love it. And I do love the notion of the helping get some funding up and running. And I know that I, on a personal level, I'm excited since Jason and I have been getting acquainted. It was largely around getting this podcast up and running. And we thought, what better way to get us in this next chapter? There's already podcast content from the past, and you can check out more at psychedelicscene.com. Up on the top of the bar there, the navigation bar, you'll see the links for Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, or X, and YouTube. So you can go back and watch previous episodes and interviews there. And then tons of articles on psychedelicscene.com. Are you open if somebody were to be interested in seeing the pitch deck? Are you open to making that available?
Of course. Yeah. I'm also open to writers contacting me if they want to contribute. I'm open to artists wanting to submit their art. So yeah, I'm an open book.
Excellent, Jason. And so if somebody wanted to get a hold of you or the pitch deck, or was interested in writing, or maybe there's some musicians out there that are interested in having their music exposed, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, probably my primary email address, which is jasonlevalley13@gmail.com. I do have a psychedelicscene.com email address, but that is currently being used strictly for the investor campaign.
Okay. So jasonlevalley13@gmail.com. And of course, you can track us down through the website and through the various channels.
Yeah, we don't have a Twitter or X account.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
It's Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Thank you for the clarification. We'll take down that one off the website then. All good. So in the meantime, I'll just sign off by saying too, my name again is Matthew Gamble. I would love it, Jason, if you lived in the Napa Valley. It would go fitting with your last name for sure, which is where I'm hailing from. And here with communities.
The Valley of the Sun.
The Valley of the, there you go. So if you have any questions or comments, we would love to see them down below on YouTube or wherever you're watching this video. If you have any recommendations about future podcasts and that type of thing, certainly all ears, but we do have an exciting lineup of individuals that are practitioners in their respective fields and just a lot of brilliant people on the docket. So I'm not trying to have the last word, but it has been a pleasure connecting with you today, Jason. I look forward to continuing and seeing what the future holds. Big congratulations to Psychedelic Scene for 20,000 followers on Facebook. And here's to the next 20,000 and growing. And yeah, any last words you'd like to share before we sign off today?
Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to host the podcast. I think it's going to be great fun working with you and seeing all your exciting guests that you have on the show.
Excellent, Jason. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This has been just before meeting you. As I told you when we first connected, we had a dear friend introduce us. And I'm like, I'm actually sitting in the very space that I'm intending to deck out more properly. So we may be seeing some good expansion in the podcast realm with some bells and whistles coming in the near future. So In the meantime, real pleasure connecting with you tonight, Jason, and looking forward to seeing what the future holds. And thank you all for tuning in and watching thus far. Here's to the better and better.